Hi everyone, welcome back to Making Things with String. My name is Kate. I live in Nova Scotia, Canada, and this is my YouTube channel about all my crafty endeavors. Welcome back. It's been a while, a little over a month, I think, since my last Flosstube video. And I'm really excited to be back today because I've kind of been through a lot over the past month. I did a nice, relaxing 2-week camping trip, which I'm sure I'll talk about a little bit as we go through the video. And when I got back from my camping trip, we actually got a new dog. Her name is Lady, and she's amazing. And maybe I'll tell a bit of story about Lady at the end of the video in case anybody's interested in hearing a little bit more about her. So it's been a busy time. But I have been crafting throughout, as always, so I've got some stuff to update you on. But on top of that, it has been almost 1 full year since I posted my first Flosstube video here on YouTube. So I'm kind of celebrating that today. Today is August 6th. I think my first video was on August 15th last year, so it hasn't quite been a year yet. But what I am going to do today is sort of celebrate my 1-year Flosstube anniversary by doing a sort of WIP parade that is similar to something that I saw the New Hampshire Stitcher do. So I will link to the New Hampshire Stitcher down below in case you have not seen her channel. She's an amazing Flosstuber. And she kind of approached her WIP parade in a bit of a different way. And I took some inspiration from that. And I'm going to do something similar. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to first go through all of the cross-stitch projects that I showed you in my first video, which was a summary of some recent finishes that I had done at that time, and then all of my works in progress, or WIPs. And I'm going to kind of update you on where those all are. Then I'm going to talk about all of the cross-stitch projects that I have started and finished since that video last August. And then I'll talk about the WIPs, or works in progress, that I've started since that first video, but haven't yet finished. And so that will give you an idea of sort of everything that I have done since my first video, and sort of update you on all of that over the course of the year. What have I accomplished? I've actually tracked the same information about my knitting projects as well, and I have started diamond painting since my first video, so I could update you on all of the diamond painting projects I've started over the year as well. So we'll see if I get into all of that, but I'm definitely going to start with some cross-stitch stuff. Okay, so this is pretty fun. So let's get started. The first project that I mentioned in my very first video was this little marriage as an endless sleepover with your favorite weirdo piece. As you can see, it looks exactly the same as it did in that first video. So I haven't done anything with this yet. But you'll recall, if you watched my first video, that I stitched a whole other version of this and gifted it to some friends of mine who were getting married last summer. I do still hope to do something with this eventually. It's just the margins on it are a little small, and the dimensions of the stitch are a little bit atypical, so I'll need to figure out what I'm going to do with this. I might be able to make a pillow or do some kind of flat fold. That actually might be what I want to do with this, because I'm not super keen on the idea of a pillow. So maybe a flat fold. It also might work as a project bag, but I don't think that this piece should be a project bag. I think it should be something that we can put up in our house, since it's about marriage, so Neil might want to see it as well in the house. Anyways, long story short, this is exactly the same as it was last year when I made my first video. So this is on 18 count black Aida with white DMC floss, and I don't know, it's very cute. And I stitched it 2 times in entirety, so yeah, can't be that bad, right? All right, the next piece that I'm going to talk about is, I'm actually missing one. Happy Camper is one that I mentioned in my first Flosstube video. I had finished stitching it, just like the Marriage Endless Sleepover piece. I subsequently, and if you watch through my videos, you'll see this, I subsequently fully finished that Happy Camper piece and gave it away as a gift. So I don't have it to show you now, but maybe I can post a picture here of that finished piece, which I gave to my father-in-law and mother-in-law, Bob and Bernice. So yeah, Happy Camper, all done and not even in my house anymore. Next up is this woodland sampler. This woodland sampler is a piece by Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and it's sort of an annual, like a calendar type situation. It was a stitch along in 2013. Again, this hasn't seen any updates since the first video that I posted. So I finished stitching it, but I was finished stitching it in August 2015 as well, and I have not fully finished it yet. However, I do have some fabric, and I'm going to do a sort of flat fold finish on this. And I want to make that a priority because it's now been over a year since I finished this, so it is well past time to fully finish it. And I think my plans for this is to hang it in my office at work. So, I mean, I still love this piece. I'm just like not super motivated to fully finish things. Stitching is more fun than fully finishing for me. So yes, no progress on the finished state of the woodland sampler, unfortunately. All right, so the next project that we're going to talk about is currently still a work in progress of mine. This is Needs No Paint, which is an art piece by Jill Clare that was charted for cross stitch by Heaven and Earth Designs. In my first video, I reported being about 9.5% complete this piece, and I have made quite a bit of progress on this piece. Here it is in its entirety, in its new full glory. Actually, it's not. You can't see a bit of the piece that I had already stitched. The tail is sort of hidden by the Q-snap. But you can see I've made a lot of progress on this. So from 9.5%, I'm now at 29.46%. And this is starting to look like a horse properly because I'm working on the head. So I haven't actually worked on this one since my last Flosstube video, but I'm really proud of the progress that I've made on this, and I really love working on this full coverage piece. And so I am planning to really focus on this once my current annual stitch along is done. And so maybe next year, this piece will be like a really heavy focus piece for me. I'm still going to be stitching on it this year as well, but I just have, well, you probably know what it is, but my Reaching Skyward Modern Folk Embroidery 2023 stitch along piece takes up a lot of my stitching time. So I try to get working on this when I am done my stitching on that. But yeah, I haven't stitched on this since my last video. But I do still really truly love this piece. And it's great. I'm up to 29.46%. So I have completed about 20% of this piece in the last year. So that's great. Hopefully it won't take, so if I've finished 25% over the course of, since when I started it, 1 or 2 years, I don't want it to take, like I don't want to maintain that pace. I want to increase the pace. But yeah, that needs no paint. This is being stitched on a 25 or 28 count even weave fabric. I'm using DMC threads. I'm stitching 2 threads over 1 fabric thread, but I'm using tent stitch, so only half stitches. I feel like that's kind of just the way to go with these really big full coverage Heaven and Earth design pieces. So it just seems a lot faster to only have to do half stitches compared to full cross. And I think it looks great. All right, so this next piece I had only just started in my very first video. This is a what I called my beach triptych. So sort of a 3-panel beach themed cross stitch piece. I had just started the first panel with the lighthouse, but since then I have finished this entire beach triptych. It's really cute. I love this piece quite a lot. I got it out of Cross Stitching magazine, a little free booklet that came with the magazine that contained a whole bunch of cute little summery beach or water themed little charts, and I put these 3 together. This I plan to finish in a frame, and we're going to put that in our downstairs basement, our downstairs bathroom, the bathroom and the basement. And so, yeah, that's the plan for this, which I just need to get to it, need to frame it up because the bathroom is all ready. We recently renovated it over Christmas, and yeah, it's all ready. It's all done, just needs a little bit of art in there. That was done on, I think, a 14 count, like oatmeal Aida with some DMC floss, 2/1. So next up, this is the final piece that was mentioned in my first Flosstube Plus video. This is my Twilight Imperium 4 Nebula chart. So if you'll remember, I auto-generated this cross-stitch chart using XStitch, the website pixelstitch.net. And it is based on an image of the Nebula tile from the Twilight Imperium 4 board game. Here is what it looks like now. I haven't made a whole ton of progress on this. I think in my first Flosstube video, I was maybe around here. So I've done sort of this bottom section there. Yeah, haven't worked on it too much. It's not really my favorite chart to work on. I do love Twilight Imperium, but yeah, I just always gravitate towards other projects or have other projects that are priorities for me. I also don't really love stitching on the black Aida. This is the same 18 count black Aida that I stitched the marriage chart on. So I like this piece, it's cool, I'm excited for when it's done. I'll keep plugging away at it, but progress is slow going on this. All right, so we are now going to be moving into projects that have been started since after my first Flosstube video. The first piece that I want to mention is my geometric turtle piece. This is a pattern by Ritakuna. And I started that last year, and I worked on it a lot during my Vlogmas/Flossmas videos all through December in 2022. This was a gift. I stitched it for my mother for Christmas, and I was working on it a lot, really kind of panicking a little bit, trying to get it finished for Christmas time. So if you want to watch through my progress on this piece, my December videos, my Vlogmas/Flossmas videos in December are a good place to go to check that out. But I obviously I gifted it to my mother for Christmas, so I can put some pictures here of that finished project. But that was started and finished last year, since August, so since my first cross stitch Flosstube video. I really love that piece. I love a lot of Ritakuna's patterns. That one was pretty big, but they have a lot of smaller geometric animal patterns. So I did a bird, which you can see as my sort of YouTube icon video, is the Ritakuna bird. I did a moose. I did a orange cat as well. Those have all been gifted away to various people. But they're patterns that I really like. They're sort of really fun and simple to stitch, and they end up looking really cool as well. So yeah. But yes, the geometric turtle was a really great pattern, and I loved that Ada that it's stitched on, and I have something else stitched on that, so maybe I'll talk more about that when we're showing that piece. All right, so the next piece that I want to mention is the Two Quaker Sisters sampler. This is a pattern by Modern Folk Embroidery, and you can see here I have completed one of the Two Quaker Sisters samplers. And yeah, this is an awesome pattern that I really like. It's sort of long and skinny. I did this during Sampler September, or I started it during Sampler September in 2022, and I finished it just not too long ago, earlier this year in 2023. The fabric it's actually probably showing up better here than it has in many of my other attempts to capture the color on camera, but it's Under the Shade or In the Shade by Roxy Flossco, and the floss that I stitched it with is also Roxy Flossco, so I got these from Evertote. And yeah, like I said, the pattern is by Modern Folk Embroidery. So this is a beautiful, beautiful chart, and I hope to frame this soon so that I can put it on the wall in my house. If you can't read it, the quote in the middle there says, "For I am thine and thou art mine." And it's sort of a Quaker style pattern, and this is sort of my first time stitching a Quaker design. I enjoyed this, and I actually have, you know, a sister sampler to this that I could stitch at some time, and I have fabric and thread left to do it so that it truly matches. But I'm not sort of itching to do it right now, so I'm not too sure when I will do that. I don't want to say I disliked stitching the Quaker style, but I will say I didn't really enjoy it that much. So it's definitely not my favorite. But I do think at some point I will stitch the companion piece to this so that they can both be on my wall. So next up is the Holiday Countdown Stitch Along SAL that was put on in December 2022 by Modern Folk Embroidery, Evertote, and Roxy Flossco. So similar trio to that Quaker Sisters sampler. Again, if you want to see all of my progress working through this piece, my December Flossmas/Vlogmas videos are the way to go. But this is the finished piece from that stitch along. This was a really, really fun stitch along. Every single day in December, you opened up a new little piece of the pattern that had a little bit of daily stitching for you to do that day. I actually got just the pattern. So you could buy the full box, and they're doing that again this year, a full box that has little envelopes for every day that contain a skein of floss for that day and the piece of the pattern that you're stitching that day. For me, I just got the booklet with the patterns, and I picked my own palette of floss colors for this. So I really, really had a lot of fun doing this. The fabric is that Fiber on a Whim. I think it's Affogato. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong there. But it's a really, really nice, I think 16 or 18 count Ada, hand-dyed Ada by Fiber on a Whim. It looks really beautiful, and it's also really, really nice and soft to stitch on. So Ada is really great, and a lot of people start stitching on Ada because it's very, very easy to tell with Ada where your needle is supposed to go, because you're stitching only over one thread. There's nice visible holes where you're supposed to be doing those cross stitches. But I think a lot of people move on from Ada to other things like linen or even weave, Lugana, etc., stuff like that, because Ada's a little bit stiff, and there's a lot of like amazing sort of hand-dyed beautiful fabrics out there. But this is a beautiful hand-dyed Ada fabric, and it's nice and soft and amazing to stitch on. So definitely check out that Fiber on a Whim if you're interested in some really beautiful Ada fabric. And I'm also stitching some pieces on, well, a piece on Roxy Floss Co. Ada that is also really, really nice to stitch on. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I saw somebody do a project bag, a cross stitch project bag, and have this as sort of the front panel of that. And I'm thinking that might be a nice use for this, although I've never made a project bag for myself, so that will be interesting to figure out. I do have a sewing machine, so I should be able to do it. But yeah, that's my 2023 holiday countdown Sal piece. It's a Frisian band sampler, by the way, in case you weren't aware of that and didn't already know. So my next start and finish since my my first Flosstube video in August 2022 is a small ornament. It's called Tall Treat. Here it is. This is a pattern by the Blue Flower, and it is one of the patterns in the Jingle Ball Baubles book. So in December 2022, I attended virtually the Jingle Ball, and one of the things that I got was the Baubles book. So every designer who attended Jingle Ball designed a little ornament to include in that book. And so the first one that I stitched was this amazingly cute Tall Treat piece by the Blue Flower, and I just love this. I haven't fully finished it yet. I'm going to do a WIPGO update at the end of the video to just tell you how I'm doing with WIPGO, because I haven't talked about it in a little while. But my WIPGO is completely centered around Christmas ornaments, and many of the Christmas ornaments that I put into my WIPGO board were from the Jingle Ball Baubles book, including this one. So this is part of WIPGO. I'm trying to stitch as many Christmas ornaments, I think about 12 as I can, by the time Christmas rolls around this year. So here's one of them. All right, on a similar vein, the next piece that I've started and completed since my first Flosstube video last year is this Gingerbread House 2 from Country Cottage Needleworks. I recently finished this and showed it on a video, but yeah, that's part of my WIPGO as well. And yeah, love this piece. And I'm looking forward to stitching more of them. I have Gingerbread House #1 as well. Yeah, not remembering off the top of my head the fabric that this is on. I think it's another Fiber on a Whim. This one's a linen, and it is probably 36 count as well, but if I remember to check, I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, love this little gingerbread house with a little gingerbread man beside it, little snowflakes, a few little French knots spattered throughout here as well that I did okay on. The next piece that I started and finished since last year is a chart called Live Long Lieutenant. This is by Shaded Stitchery, and it's actually a freebie pattern that you can get just by signing up for the newsletter on the Shaded Stitchery website. You get access to some freebies, and this is one of those. So I don't have it here with me. It's something that I have in my office at work, but I should have some pictures or a video clip of that final piece, and I completed this early in 2023 in February, I believe. Anyways, it's a really cute, very small, quick little stitch that goes with my office decor, my Star Trek office decor. Another start and finish that I did since my last video, or my first video in August, And another piece that I do not have here with me is this sort of wolf howling at the moon piece that I showed in, I think, my most recent Flosstube video. This is a pattern that I got off of Etsy that I stitched and gave to a colleague of mine. I stitched it on a beautiful dark hand-dyed fabric that I got from the Divination Stitch Box by the Starlight Stitchery. And I stitched it using Forbidden Fiber Floss Co. floss as well that I got from that Divination Stitch Box. And I really love this piece and gave it away, so hopefully you're seeing some pictures or footage of that little wolfie as well. So the next thing that I have to show off is exciting because this not only is a start and finish since my first Flosstube video, but it's a start and finish since my very recent Flosstube video. I mentioned that I was going to be trying to stitch this piece. It's called Ringing in Good Cheer by Satsuma Street. It's another one of the baubles from the Jingle Ball Baubles book. And I started this right after my last video. I took this with me camping, and it turned out to be like a small portable project that was just really convenient to stitch while I was camping, and I ended up finishing. So it's 3 little bells that will, when they are finished, sort of hang and dangle from one another, and then the top part will have a ribbon to hang from the tree. But I'll show you them all a little bit closer. I might have some video footage here too to get a nice closer look. But yeah, this is a beautiful little bauble that I'm excited to fully finish as well. Very cute. This is the first time I've ever stitched anything from Satsuma Street, and I really, really liked the process of stitching this. This is sort of blowing out a bit, but it's pink. Yeah, really enjoyed stitching this one, and looking forward to fully finishing it, and looking forward to trying some more Satsuma Street patterns just because I really enjoyed this so much. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the bright, vibrant colors, and just sort of the detail of this. This is actually stitched on perforated paper, which is not something I've ever done before. So that was a lot of fun. I think perforated paper with small items like this is great. If you had a piece that was much bigger, it might be a little bit hard to stitch because you can't fold the fabric. If you fold the paper, then you're folding your piece. So these were perfect because they're nice and small and can just fit in your hand. And looking forward to trying some more ornaments on this perforated paper, which I have quite a bit more of. So yeah, very cool. I just used the called for DMC threads. The perforated paper in the pattern is called for, is white, and I think it's 18 count, whereas I used a sort of brown 14 count, but it worked out. So the next piece that I wanted to talk about that I started since my first Flosstube video is a piece called Ragnarok. This is a pattern by Long Dog Samplers, and it's an amazing, huge cross-stitch piece. And I am still at the very beginning of stitching this piece, but here's what I have completed. This will be updated a bit since you last saw it in my previous video, because I did take it with me on my camping road trip, and I did stitch on it a bit. So yeah, hopefully you can see a little bit of an update there. This piece has been a lot of fun to stitch. I'm stitching one thread over one fabric thread on this linen, which is, I believe, 25 count. I'll have to double check. But yeah, the stitches are super tiny, and I'm stitching with DMC variegated thread. I believe it's DMC 115. Let's see, I have it right here. Yeah, DMC 115. So it's a really great sort of variegated red, goes from bright red down to like deep burgundy, and I love how it is looking. I'm working a little bit to pool the color so that I don't get, normally when I do a piece that's full coverage, I like to do 10 by 10 squares, and I'm realizing that that's really not going to be a great idea for this piece, and because of the variegated thread, we don't want like boxes throughout this piece. So yeah, it's working out really good. I can't wait to get more work done on this. It's really, really fun to stitch. We'll see when that happens. So my next new start since August last year is this Stranger Things parody piece by Backstitch Optional on Etsy. This Etsy shop is run by a friend of mine, Lisa, and she sent me this pattern. We had like a little stitchy day last year sometime, and she sent me this pattern for Stranger Things. So I don't have a whole lot of progress on this since the last time you saw it. I have finished the second character, but yeah, I haven't been working on this too much. Again, I just have a lot of sort of monthly stitching goals, and that's taking over. But these patterns are really fun and easy to complete, like one little character at a time. So hopefully maybe like next year or something, once my 2023 stitch along is done, I'll start making sort of like a monthly goal to make progress on this one. Maybe a character per month or 2 characters per month or something like that. But yeah, it's looking really cute so far, and I do the back stitch even though it's optional. This is just some regular, I think 18 count or 16 count Aida cloth, and I'm just using DMC to stitch it. Very cute. All right, now it's time to talk about the big piece that I keep mentioning. So this year I am stitching on the Reaching Skyward chart by Modern Folk Embroidery. This is an amazing, beautiful year-long stitch along that Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery is doing. I started this on January 1st of this year. Here's what it's looking like right now in my Q-snap. You know, you can kind of see parts of what I'm currently working on. I'm not quite caught up with what I was supposed to have done in July, but I'm getting there, and I'm hoping to catch up by the end of August. So what I will do is put a photo of what the entire piece looks like, because I took a picture of it last time before, when I was moving the Q-snap, so you can see kind of what I completely have done. As I mentioned, I think I am stitching this piece on a 20 count Aida porcelain Aida from Roxy Floss Co. And I'm using Roxy Floss floss as well. I'm using the colors The Whiz and Brass Tacks. Another thing you'll notice about my version of Reaching Skyward is that the tree, the big medallion tree in the middle of the piece, doesn't look quite like the main chart. And that's because Jacob released an alternate tree chart, and I chose number 2 of the alternate trees to complete. So yeah, this piece is going great. I'm really, really glad that I'm doing it. I'm going to feel so accomplished when it's done in December, and I've been doing, I think, a pretty good job of keeping up with it throughout the course of the year. I'm really sort of motivated to do that. However, maybe you've picked up on this throughout the video as well. I am looking forward to being done this annual stitch along, and I don't think I will do another one in 2024, especially not one as big as this. So this piece, in order to stay caught up, I have to stitch about 4,000 stitches per month, and for the amount of time that I have to stitch, that ends up being a lot of my stitching time. And when I have a lot of stitching time, I get to stitch that as well as some other things. But for example, this past month, I didn't have as much stitching time. And so I was not finished I didn't get my July stitching on this done. Part of that reason is because the stitching time that I did have was in a tent, or a lot of it was in a tent, and I found it a little bit awkward to stitch on that huge piece in my tent. So instead I stitched on that ringing in good cheer ornament, and I also stitched on Ragnarok in my tent while I was camping as well. And I did stitch a little bit on Reaching Skyward, but not very much. And so when I got back from my trip, midway through, my trip was like the 2 middle weeks of July. I had sort of a week and a bit left in July to try and finish that piece, and finish the July portion of that piece. And I just didn't quite make it there. So it's fine. I'm going to catch up. But I am looking forward to not having that pressure next year, and being able to sort of pick and choose different things to really focus on either throughout the year, like maybe my Needs No Paint piece, and or just like month to month focusing on some different pieces. Maybe like Ragnarok, maybe like Ophelia. We'll talk about Ophelia very soon. Okay, so that's Reaching Skyward. Again, love that piece. It's going to be so beautiful, and I love stitching on it. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of stitching. It's a huge piece. All right, so the next cross-stitch project that I have started but not yet completed is another Jingle Ball bauble. This one is called Nordic Nutcracker, and that pattern is by Tiny Modernist. So again, from the Jingle Ball Baubles book. And here's what he looks like. He's extremely handsome. I love this little pattern. Hopefully I did put up a picture of what the full pattern looks like. I think he's got this sort of yellow golden oval surrounding him, and in the pattern there's stuff outside of the oval, but I think for my purposes I'm just going to stitch what's inside the oval. So all that needs to happen now is some green fill-in all the way around him. So yeah, love this piece. He's freaking cute. Love that guy so much. Just DMC floss on a piece of linen, 32 count, can't really remember. Pretty basic linen color. Yeah, he's so cute, and I'm saving him just for fill-in, because all I have to do is fill in stitches at this point. This is the second to last cross stitch piece. So I relatively recently started my very first Mirabilia. This is Ophelia by Mirabilia, and I kitted this project up at my first visit to the Stitch Bug in Moncton, which is a cross-stitch shop in Moncton, New Brunswick. And I had heard a lot about Mirabilia, Nora Corbett in general through Flosstube, but hadn't ever stitched any of her projects. A lot of the fancy ladies don't really speak to me too much. Like, they are beautiful, but not really the kind of thing that I feel like I would want to hang up in my house. And so that had sort of stopped me from wanting to stitch them. But when I found out that there was a really great cross-stitch shop in Moncton, and I go through Moncton quite a lot when I'm like traveling back and forth between Halifax and visiting my family, I wanted to get something special there, so I decided to kit up Mirabilia project, and Ophelia is the one that I landed on, and this is the project. This is the progress that I have on her. So no updates since the last time you saw her in one of my Flosstube videos, but she's looking amazing. She is stitched on a olive fabric, I think by Zweigart, and this is, I believe, a Lugana. And I really am enjoying stitching on it. I think it's 32 or 36 count. Just really fun. I can't wait to get back to this as well. But again, I'm just like stitching a lot on Reaching Skyward, and I'm trying to keep up progress on Needs No Paint as well. So this is another sort of big piece that I hope will get a little bit more attention once I'm done with Reaching Skyward. But whenever I get a chance, I do get to put some stitches in her, and she's amazing. When I first talked about this piece, when I first kitted it up, they, at the store didn't have all of the Karen water lilies that I needed, but I recently got the second one from them. So this Karen water lilies I already had, but this is the other Karen water lilies color that goes in Ophelia. So I just picked this up recently in my last trip through Moncton on the way back to Halifax from my camping trip. So these are beautiful silk threads, and I've never stitched with silk threads before, so excited to start using those once I get to them in the fabric or in the pattern. They're very soft, and I'm a little bit scared to start stitching with them, not because I think it's going to be difficult or that I'll mess them up, but because I'm afraid that I will love them and start wanting to buy a bunch of silk threads for every project that I want to stitch, which could be expensive. Mirabilias also have a whole bunch of beautiful beads and stuff in them. Like, it's just like a luxurious, like really beautiful project. So I'm excited to keep working on this. All right. Last but not least, this is a new start since my last video, and obviously a new start since my first Flosstube video. This is yet another Jingle Ball Baubles piece. This is Evergreen by Summer House Stitchworks, and this is just another one of the baubles from the Jingle Ball book that I have on my WIPGO board that I started stitching, and so here is my progress so far on that. It's really, really fun, easy stitching. It reminds me a lot of, remember how earlier I was talking about those Ritakuna patterns that are sort of geometric shapes that are really fun and easy to stitch. Well, this is even easier to stitch because the shapes are regularly placed and regularly shaped, unlike the Ritakuna pieces. So this has been a lot of fun so far. I would say I'm not quite halfway done, but nearing halfway done. I'm not using the called for DMC. I didn't have all of the called for DMC, so I am using, the green will be 732, which I think is called for, but the lighter pink I'm using is 760, and the deeper red is 221. So I'm using those three colors for this. And where's my fabric info? So I can't find the piece of paper that says what the name of this fabric is, and it's actually not showing up super true in the camera. It's got a bit of a like vintage rose, sort of pinky hue to it. This little scrap I got from Stitchbug. So like I said, I went there recently on my way back from my camping trip, and they had a bunch of little bins with just fabric scraps in it, and they were all like really cheap little fabric scraps. So I decided to paw my way through those and see if there were any that I liked. And this is really, really pretty. So hopefully at some point I will find the piece of paper that says what the name of this fabric is, but it is as well a Lugana. I'm discovering that I really enjoy stitching on Lugana. Don't really know what the difference is between Lugana and just even weave. Maybe the types of fiber that go into the fabric might differentiate. But Lugana is a type of even weave, I think, and importantly enough for my purposes, the weave is even. Unlike in linen, where there's sort of some differences between the thickness of the different threads in a linen, that's not the case with Lugana and with even weave, and I really like that. And so yeah, I'm loving this little piece. It's super cute. It's going to be sort of a little square little ornament. That was Lady getting up, changing positions, getting on the bed. Yes, I know. All right, before I talk about my knitting progress since August last year, I want to do a quick update on WIPGO, since that's a cross-stitch thing. We're going to keep going with all the cross-stitch stuff and then switch over to knitting. So I hadn't talked about WIPGO in my videos for a couple videos. I had kind of stopped following WIPGO. I was still paying attention to what was being called and keeping track of it, but I hadn't been feeling really motivated to start new ornaments. So often when stuff would get called, I would be like, and I would just keep stitching on whatever I was stitching on. However, also sometimes I was stitching on ornaments and just stitching them as I wanted and finishing them up. So it turns out that I do have some like pretty decent progress in WIPGO, and I have been keeping track of it, and I created, hopefully you're seeing here, my current WIPGO status. So I created this in PowerPoint. It's sort of a little grid of my 25 squares in WIPGO. And you'll see, first of all, there are white squares. These have not been called for WIPGO, and I haven't stitched them. The yellow squares have been called, but I haven't stitched them. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 things that have been called, but that I haven't stitched. You'll note though that evergreen is 2 of those, and I do plan to complete that little ornament. So those will turn green. So green is squares that have been called and that I have also stitched. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. So soon to be 9 green and 8 yellow. So I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to keep sort of focusing on that again because it is now August. The month after August is September, and that's basically December, right? So I need to like get going on these ornaments if I want to have some done for Christmas. And again, the idea is to have some ornaments for my own tree, but also to use some of these as Christmas gifts. So I do want to, finish some of them up. Oh, a color that I didn't mention is a sort of orangey color, and that square, there's one orange square right now, it hasn't been called, but I did stitch it. So gingerbread 2, I have finished. I don't know if I said this, but you might be noticing it just by looking at this board. Everything is on here twice. So I had 12 ornaments that I wanted to stitch. There's little lady. Hi, sweet lady. Good girl. Hi. Yes. She kind of is waiting for her dinner. So we'll wrap up soon. Can't remember what I was saying. Anyway, I finished gingerbread 2 as well. So once that gets called, it's sort of like a freebie. I remember what I was saying. I have everything on there twice. So there's only 12 ornaments that I plan to stitch, 1 per month, or 2 halves per month, which is the 2 WIPGO calls per month. So gingerbread 2 was called once, but the second one wasn't called, but I finished it anyway because I just didn't want to have all these WIPs. I'm not like a have a million WIPs kind of person. So I was more comfortable just finishing gingerbread 2. Anyways, like I said, I am working on evergreen right now. And then you can see in my to start list, these are basically the yellow squares. And you can see that evergreen, Jingle All the Way, and Tree Lot A have an asterisk beside them, which means that both of their squares had been called. And that's one of the reasons that I chose evergreen, because I need to finish it, basically. It's been called twice, so I should have stitched both halves of it. So we're getting there. Now let's move on a knitting update for the year. So in my first video last August in 2022, I showed you a whole bunch of socks that I had recently completed. And this I'm mentioning to start off with because as I was going through this process, I realized, I just like knit a lot of socks and I don't necessarily just keep track of them very well. And nor do I really want to. So there were lots of socks. There have been lots of socks since. We're not going to like spend too much time talking about individual socks. They're sort of, I love them. They keep me busy. They're nice to wear, but they're kind of whatever. So we're not going to talk about specific socks. There might be like 1 or 2 exceptions if I'm like currently working on socks, like they're a current WIP, then I'll show them. But yes, I started off by showing a whole bunch of socks that I had knit. Obviously those are still finished. Another thing I showed was my Soldotna crop tee that I had knit. That I haven't touched yet. So in that first video, I said that I was thinking of making it a little bit longer or a little bit less cropped, and I also talked about potentially making the sleeves a little bit longer. Still haven't done anything with it, still haven't worn it, still a huge tragedy that I put all that work into knitting it and haven't used it at all. So back on my radar, but yeah, haven't done anything with it yet. So we'll see. Another thing that I showed but haven't touched or made any progress on since that first video is my granny stripe blanket that I use to make use of the leftovers that I have from all of my sock yarn. So that I just really need to finish. The little ball of yarn that I had already sort of skeined up to crochet into it is all that I want to put into it. It's actually folded up right here in my little cubby. So again, and the Soldotna crop is underneath it. So I just need to get to that, tie those in, and then I can start working on a different project for my sock yarn scraps. And I'm kind of excited to do that. And I'm excited to just be able to more really use that blanket. So we'll get there with the granny stripe. I started and finished a bunch of knitting projects since my first video, as in this past year. I did 2 cute little cowls for my niece and nephew. I did the Phelan Fox cowl and the Dalton Dino cowl for my niece and nephew. They are very cute. I gave those to them as Christmas gifts. I also knit a little t-shirt from a Lane magazine, and hopefully I have a picture of that or some video footage that I can show you of that. I featured it in at least one of my videos as well. Really proud of that little tee. It's one of the more sort of wearable items that I've knitted. I also knit this dress that I'm currently wearing, so I'll stand up a little bit to show you. This is my Leona dress. You can't really see all the way down, but it's a little sort of almost tank dress that I knit using the advent calendar yarn that I got during December 2022. It was Hue Loco Vista Fade advent calendar. And again, if you want to check out that advent calendar, go check out my Flossmas/Vlogmas videos from December. This was really, really fun to knit. And again, it's one of my more wearable, knits that I am comfortable in. So love this dress. I started it sort of right after Christmas Day when I opened up the last of that advent calendar, and it took me, I think, about 5 months to knit. So it's the first sort of dress that I've ever knit. I've knit a few sweaters and t-shirts, but never a full-length dress. And again, some socks. I have knit some socks. Started and finished some socks since my last video, because that's what I'm always knitting. I have some projects that are still on the go. I started a pair of Briggs & Little socks. I don't have them here with me, but I've shown them recently. I'll show some pictures and or video of where I am with those socks right now. I've almost finished the first sock, just need to do the little blue toe on it, and then I can knit the second sock. And that's with Briggs & Little yarn, using the Briggs & Little heavy sock pattern that I have. I also have 3 projects that were probably WIPs when I recorded that first video in August, but that I didn't show in it. I did show them during Vlogmas though. One of them is a pine forest hat that I'm knitting with some yellow and white yarn. Another is a pair of socks that I'm knitting 2 at a time with some fingering weight yarn that Neil's grandmother gave me. And then I have this sort of brown sweater that I'm almost done knitting that I showed in that video as well. I just sort of need to knit the trim that goes around the collar in the front. Yeah, so that's it for knitting. I'll do a quick summary too of my diamond painting. Diamond painting isn't something that I was into when I started my YouTube channel last year. But I have finished 2 diamond paintings since then. The first one was this beautiful owl diamond painting that I got as a Christmas gift from my mom. So that's when my diamond painting started. This is a little bit of a special or unique kind of diamond painting as far as I can tell. It's not full coverage, but it was a great place to start, and I think it's really pretty. I like that little owl. I've also completed a diamond painting that I ordered from Paint Plot, which is an Australian company. They sell paint by numbers but also diamond paintings, and this is sort of a beautiful sunset landscape piece that I started and finished. Finally, for diamond paintings, I do have a work in progress, and it's a huge 4+ feet tall kraken engulfing a ship. This is a Diamond Art Club kit, and it's massive. I have not worked on it since my last video, but I want to. I love diamond painting. It's really great. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I really like this kraken as well. So maybe next year in my 2024 August update WIP parade, the kraken will be done. Wouldn't that be cool? We'll see. All right, so that's about it for my crafty updates. It was a WIP parade slash update sort of mixed in. And that's about all that I have for crafty talk. I think I'll take just a little minute to talk about my new dog Lady and see if she will maybe come over here to say hi a little bit closer, but you can see her. She's right there. So she's a beautiful, approximately 3-year-old mix. She was a stray, and they picked her up in a little bit before April this year, probably. She was pregnant. So she had a litter of puppies after they picked her up in mid-April. And then I have some cousins who live in Nova Scotia, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Halifax. And they were fostering Lady and her litter of puppies from mid-May until just recently. So the puppies all found homes, and they were just looking. They did keep one of the puppies. So Ruby, Lady's little daughter, lives with my cousins, or my cousin and his partner. And yeah, they were looking for a home for Lady. And at first, you know, we weren't really looking for a new dog right away. We just lost my dog Roz in February this year, and that was really hard. So you know, I was like keeping an eye out for a dog that might be a good fit, but also not really sure if we were ready for a new dog to take over Roz's spot in our hearts. But I just kept hearing such amazing, lovely things about Lady, and they all seem to be really true. She's just very sweet, a little bit itchy, you know, but she's just a very gentle, really great demeanor dog. She's a huge mix, but they did a DNA test on her, and she's mostly Alaskan Malamute and Siberian Husky, and then German Shepherd. Those are the top 3. But yeah, she's actually just like a really big sweetheart. She loves to cuddle. She's really great on walks. We had a little bit of trouble convincing her that it was okay to go to the bathroom in front of us, so she was like holding it for a long time when she first came to us. But she's getting it. She's getting the idea now that when we go on walks, it's okay to do that stuff, and actually it's really good to do that stuff then. So she's getting used to that. And she's just an amazing little girl, and I'm really, really happy that we decided to take her. It's also really nice because, you know, my cousins have her little puppies, so we can kind of reunite them. But also I can tell that my cousin and, you know, his siblings and my aunt and uncle, their parents, you know, have kind of fallen in love with the dog a little bit too. Like, she's so sweet, and I think that they were really glad that somebody in the family kept her so that they'll all get to visit with her. And in fact, yesterday we went over to one of my cousin's places who lives here in Halifax, who's having a baby shower, and brought Lady with us. And so she got to be reunited with some of those people that she had met before. And that was fun. Hey, Lady? You a good girl? Come see me. You come here? No. All right. So yes, that's sort of the big news apart from my road trip, which was also awesome. Maybe I'll finish the video off by putting in a bit of a slideshow of some of the pictures from the places where I visited on my road trip. But I think I'm going to call it there. I was going to maybe talk about some books. A lot of Flosstubers I've watched lately also do book recommendations, and I have been reading some books, mostly spurred by my vacation, so I'd like to update a little bit on that, but maybe I'll wait until my next video to do that, since this is getting quite long. This is maybe my longest video ever. I've been recording for over an hour now, so if you've been watching this whole thing, I want to say thank you so much. I'm really enjoying doing these Flosstube videos, and I'm really glad that some people are watching them. Leave me a comment if you feel like it, telling me what you think of my WIPs or my progress in last year. Maybe if you want to chat about something that you're working on or what you were doing while you were watching my video, I would love to hear about that too. And yeah, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to feed my new dog. I'm going to turn on the fan again because it's really freaking hot in here because it's August. Yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.